and to stop people from going there during parts of the year. There's a lot of management that can help improve this.
The New York City Audubon is now conducting a deep analysis of the data they have collected for nearly 4 decades for the Harbor Heron Survey. Scientists will use these findings to better understand the harbor's changing ecosystem and assess new conservation efforts. They hope to publish this comprehensive report later this year. For Partridge and his crew, the annual count is a crusade to ensure New York City remains a healthy habitat for birds and their offspring.
That one still has egg attached to it. That's adorable. I yawned.
Rosemary Misdary, WNYC News.
Legendary Australian rockers Midnight Oil are off the road. They've done their final tour. So the lead singer Peter Garrett will join me to look back at their illustrious career and how they put environmentalism and climate activism at the forefront of their art from day one. It's coming up on Q from CBC. Tonight at 10 on 93.9 FM WNYC.
It's Morning Edition from NP.
81 and sunny right now, sunny and 91 for a high on this Thursday, July 6th. And then tomorrow, slim chance of midday showers and thunderstorms, partly sunny and 86 for a high. Again, 80, low 80s right now, and sunshine is going to be another warm one today. It's 8:50.
Support for WNYC comes from New York Blood Center. The need for blood and platelets is critical, especially during holidays. Donating blood and platelets is a way to make an impact on lives in our community. Appointments are available at nybc.org.
Marketplace Morning Report is coming up next, and then in 10 minutes at 9 o'clock, it's the BBC News Hour on WNYC. Let's check in with London to see what they're working on. London, good morning.
Good morning, WNYC. I'm Tim Franks. On today's News Hour, a deadly Russian missile strike in western Ukraine and more mystery over the Russian mutiny leader. That's BBC News Hour, coming up at 9 on WNYC.
Americans seem to have made up their minds about the Supreme Court. It's either restoring justice.
I still believe in the Constitution.
Or destroying America.
The Supreme Court's not going to save us.
I'm Julia Longoria. And in the new season of More Perfect, we're making sense of the Supreme Court today. Listen to More Perfect from WNYC, wherever you get podcasts.
Toyota says it's closing in on quite the electric car battery.
Marketplace Morning Report is supported by UiPath, providing organizations the UiPath AI-powered business automation platform. More at uipath.com/marketplace. UiPath, the foundation of innovation.
I'm David Brancaccio. First, Janet Yellen has arrived in Beijing. It's her first trip to China as U.S. Treasury Secretary, and she's the second senior official from the Biden administration to make the journey in recent weeks. Marketplace's Jennifer Pack reports from Beijing Capital Airport.
Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen arrives in 100-degree weather in Beijing. But that's not the only thing heating up. Days before, China announced controls on exports of 2 key metals needed to make semiconductors. This is seen as retaliation for the U.S. limiting Chinese companies from accessing sensitive technologies from America. According to an editorial from government media China Daily, Yellen's visit will hopefully prevent the relationship from, quote, spiraling out of control. China is not happy with attempts by the U.S. to, quote, suppress and contain its rise, like when the Biden administration sanctioned Chinese firms, continues to maintain U.S. tariffs on Chinese exports, and is shifting supply chains away from mainland China. The U.S.'s economic concerns revolve around getting China to play fair, with things like government subsidies to Chinese firms or the extent of industrial espionage. China has also broadened its anti-spying law, which American firms worry could make ordinary information gathering illegal. It's a long list, but many analysts say the act of talking is key. In Beijing, I'm Jennifer Pack for Marketplace.
I'm looking at the U.S. 10-year interest rate running quite high this morning. It's now above 4%, the highest since early March. This after we got the private sector payroll data for June today from the processor ADP. Almost 500,000 more people were on payrolls in June. That is more than double what was forecast. Point number one, the job market's very strong, which is good for workers. Point two, higher interest rates to curb inflation are coming. S&P futures are now down 0.7%, NASDAQ futures down 0.9%. Toyota is promising a battery breakthrough it hopes will be a turning point for electric vehicles. The world's largest automaker is reporting progress making EV batteries lighter, smaller, and cheaper in ways that could dramatically extend the range of electric vehicles. Toyota hasn't plunged fully into all electrics, preferring hybrids instead, but that could soon change. Marketplace's Lily Jamali has more.
It's been more than 25 years since Toyota introduced the hybrid Prius, paving the way for a mass-market electric car. But then,
of course, Tesla came in and, took over that crown.
That's Jessica Caldwell, Executive Director of Insights at Edmunds. She says Toyota is trying to put itself back on top by announcing a new technology in the works, an affordable solid-state battery that would replace the liquid lithium-ion batteries now standard in EVs. That's something companies across the industry have raced to develop for years.
They're very efficient. They can offer extremely long ranges, pretty much solving a lot of the issues that consumers would have with buying an electric vehicle.
That technology would be a game changer for Toyota, says Michelle Krebs, executive analyst at Cox Automotive.
If it is successful with this kind of battery, it will leapfrog some of the other automakers.
But there are a lot of ifs on the way to that success. I'm Lily Jamali for Marketplace.
The oil producers cartel OPEC is under new pressure to neutralize the climate impact of the oil and gas industry itself. The head of this year's round of United Nations climate talks told OPEC members in Vienna today that the industry needs to become net zero by 2050 and net zero on methane, an especially potent contributor to climate change, by the year 2030. Note this is about the oil and gas industry getting to the point where it's compensating for its own greenhouse gas emissions. The climate effects of all the oil and gas produced is a much larger challenge.
Marketplace Morning Report is supported by Grammarly, offering Grammarly Business to help companies large and small communicate better and move faster with enterprise-grade generative artificial intelligence. Learn more at Grammarly.com/business. And by Fidelity. A dedicated Fidelity advisor can help create a wealth plan for a full financial picture. Investment minimums apply. Fidelity Brokerage Services, LLC.
Healthcare costs are projected to go up again next year by 7%, using a calculation by the audit and consulting firm PwC. General inflation and shortage of people to hire are part of this, and if you have insurance through work, there is likely a committee that will decide to what extent these costs get passed on to you. Marketplace's Ellie Budner explains.
In the decade before COVID, medical costs were actually declining. Then they spiked during the pandemic and went down a bit after. But for the last couple of years, the cost of healthcare has been on the rise. That's all according to the PwC report.
It's the impact of inflation on healthcare providers.
Tom Bales was an author on the report. He says the cost of medical equipment has gone up, and so have provider wages. The healthcare sector's been squeezed by pandemic burnout and labor shortages. And Bales says pharmaceutical drugs are also more costly.
The median price of a new drug brought to market last year was actually quite expensive. It was about $200,000 or so.
Bales says there are a couple of things that could help with medical costs.
There's biosimilars, which are molecules for drugs that have come off patent that become available, and they are often available at 50% lower than the branded drug.
Plus, Bales says providers are finding ways to cut costs more these days too, making use of lower cost facilities, home healthcare, and telemedicine. But overall, healthcare costs are still going up. So who's going to feel it the most? Cynthia Cox with the Kaiser Family Foundation says part of that depends on how employers react to rising costs.
So if employers shift these healthcare costs onto their employees by raising deductibles, then that could certainly impact access to care.
Cox says employers could also choose to offset higher premium prices by lowering costs in other areas, say by deferring raises or bonuses. Dana Goldman co-directs the Schaefer Center for Health Policy and Economics at the University of Southern California.
I would say the working middle class are the ones who will probably be stretched the most.
He says the underinsured and uninsured, people who have high deductibles or who pay out of pocket, will certainly feel the pinch. But Goldman says he's cautious about health cost predictions.
I do think there are these inflationary pressures that are tied to the labor market, and so you will see that in the next year.
But he doesn't necessarily think these price increases are here for the long term. I'm Ali Budner for Marketplace.
And you're listening to the Marketplace Morning Report from APM, American Public Media.